So this is Nutrition Education 1, and my name is Lydia. I'm the registered dietitian for Community Farmacy. I work with Parkview's Center for Healthy Living as a community outreach dietitian. So today you guys should be following along in the nutrition class key concepts fill in the blank note sheet in your booklet. If you don't have a booklet, let me know. And those answers will appear throughout the presentation, so just keep an eye on them, and this will help you to remember what you're learning throughout the course of the program. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started with some background on what is type 1 diabetes, what's type 2 diabetes. So type 1 diabetes is the body's immune system attacks the cells, which are called beta cells, that actually make insulin. So your pancreas makes little or no insulin, so you need an external source of insulin to help your body utilize glucose from food as energy. So insulin acts like a key to kind of unlock the cell and let the glucose into the cell so your cell can use the energy. But when you have type 1, you're not making enough insulin. So if this would happen if maybe you had 7 people living in your house but only 2 keys. Okay. So one thing about type 1 diabetes is it's not caused by poor nutrition or lifestyle, but fixing those and keeping healthy habits and changing up your nutrition can really help to manage your blood sugar. This type of diabetes is less common than type 2. Only about 5 to 10% of people with diabetes have type 1 diabetes. Yep. So type 1 is more called insulin-dependent diabetes. When sometimes people know it as juvenile diabetes, like he said, usually children and younger people get type 1 diabetes, but you can actually get it at any age. So type 2 diabetes is somewhat similar and it could be kind of confusing, but basically type 2 is when your body isn't using that insulin as normal. So this is like when you have a key, multiple keys, and you use the wrong key for a door. So your door isn't going to open because it's resistant to that key, and just because you're trying to open it doesn't mean it will. Your body builds up a tolerance to insulin, and this is when it can become insulin resistant. So this can happen when we have a poor diet. There's a lot of different causes for it, but when we get a lot of extra sugar in our diet, sometimes we get our cells just don't know what to do with it. They can't process it fast enough, and that's when you require more insulin and your body gets tired. Yeah, so stress can raise your blood sugar, but it doesn't necessarily cause diabetes. So here are some of the risk factors for type 2 diabetes. If you have prediabetes, if you're overweight, if you're over the age of 45, if you have a parent or sibling with type 2 diabetes, if you're physically active less than 3 times a week, if you've had gestational diabetes, or if you are an African American, Hispanic, or Latino, American Indian, or Alaskan Native person. These all give you a higher risk for type 2 diabetes. So while you cannot prevent type 1 diabetes, you can prevent or delay type 2 diabetes with proven lifestyle changes, including losing weight if you're overweight, eating a healthier diet, and getting regular physical activity. And these things can also help you to manage type 1 diabetes. Yeah, yep, type 2 diabetes, you can rely less on medications, and this has happened with people in this program before. They've really reversed their diabetes. So yeah, it just takes some dedication and forming healthier habits. So the next thing is, how do we feel when our blood sugar is high versus how do we feel when it's low? So high blood sugar is also known as hyperglycemia, and low blood sugar is hypoglycemia. So if anyone sees something on this slide that you feel like you notice when your blood sugar is high or when it's low, this might help you kind of identify that your blood sugar is not quite normal. So, but if you're not aware of these things, maybe seeing this list will help you to become more aware. So there are a few things that can cause hyperglycemia. One thing, if you have type 1 diabetes, it may be because you didn't give yourself enough insulin. And if you have type 2 diabetes, your body may not have enough insulin, or that it's not as effective as it should be. Maybe because you exercised more than you planned to, or you didn't eat enough, or you had stress. All those things can cause hyperglycemia. So some people also notice high blood sugar in the morning, and you would think that your blood sugar would be lower, but there's something known as the dawn phenomenon, which is a surge in hormones where your body produces extra glucose in the morning from around 4 to 5 a.m. And then on the other hand, hypoglycemia, low blood sugar, can be caused when you have like over-exercise and maybe not eaten enough, and you gave yourself too much insulin. There are a few things that can cause hypoglycemia. So all of these symptoms of high and low blood sugar can be really uncomfortable and scary and honestly kind of dangerous. So we really want to limit those fluctuations in our blood sugar as often and as well as we can by some of the nutrition patterns that I will talk about. So last thing I'll say about this is, as you're monitoring your blood sugar with your sensors, it'll be good to kind of keep an eye on these symptoms, write them down if you notice them, and just really try to get a feel for like maybe how you're eating and what you're eating is impacting your blood sugar, and then how that's making you feel. So it's important to know that uncontrolled blood sugar can cause multiple health problems: heart disease, vision loss, kidney disease, nerve damage, and much more. So now we'll get into kind of the nutrition stuff. I had to give a good background on what diabetes is, but do not fear. There's lots we can do to help our bodies. So today we'll talk about what in our food raises our blood sugar so we can be more aware of that. How many food groups should our meals have to balance out our blood sugar? And then how often should we be eating to keep our blood sugar more stable throughout the day? So what in our food raises our blood sugar? So we get energy from our food. Protein, fat, and carbohydrates are all macronutrients that all give us energy. So carbohydrates are the ones that are the easiest to digest, and they digest really quickly in our body. So they have the biggest impact on our blood sugar. So when foods and drinks with carbs are digested, the carbs break down into glucose to fuel our cells, and our blood sugar rises. In people without diabetes, blood sugar levels rise after eating, but the body's insulin response keeps the blood sugar level from going too high. So if you have diabetes, this process doesn't work quite like it was designed. So you might notice some of the pictures. Some of them are more obviously like sugary and sweet, and some of them are gonna be like some of the more nutritious options, like our apples, some whole grains, lentils and legumes, even milk are super nutritious sources. So carbohydrates definitely come from a lot of different sources, and some are better for our bodies than others. Yeah, good question. So orange juice is usually going to spike our blood sugar more because it lacks that fiber. But oranges do have fiber, so they have a slower impact on our blood sugar. Yeah, so that's a good question. Sometimes dried fruit has added sugar in it as well as the water is taken out. So that added sugar increases the amount of sugar in our blood after we digest it, and then also the water isn't helping really to dilute it. So yeah, we want to be careful about any source of carbohydrates, including added sugar in fruit or dried fruit. But added sugar can still be part of our diet. I wanted to come back to that question about orange juice and other juices. Sometimes those quickly digested juices and like a glucose tablet or a gel tube or even like a regular soda is an easy way to get in sugar if your blood sugar is low. So if it's below 70, we want to try to do 15 grams of carbohydrates and give it 15 minutes and then check your blood sugar. And then until your blood sugar is back up to 70, you want to repeat that every 15 minutes. Almond milk, it may have a little bit of carbohydrate. Sometimes milks have added sugar, so you want to watch out for that because some of the plant-based milks don't have very much protein. And so when we're just getting mostly added sugar, it could potentially spike our blood sugar just like a juice could. I was going to say soy milk has quite a bit more protein. It's most comparable to dairy milk. So I usually recommend, if you can't do dairy, doing soy milk just because it has more protein, more vitamin D, and more calcium. It depends on your preferences and how your body tolerates milk. I usually recommend a low-fat dairy option if you can tolerate dairy, so 1 or 2% or even skim milk. If you can't tolerate dairy, like I said, the next best option is fortified soy milk. And then from there, there's less nutritional value in all of the other milks. It definitely depends on what you're using it for. If you like coconut milk or almond milk or one of the other milks better, definitely use what you enjoy the most, trying to limit the added sugar. But know that most of them don't have very much protein, and if there's a ton of added sugar or if you're eating it with like a source of carbohydrates, it wouldn't help balance out your blood sugar. So how many food groups should our meals and snacks have to help us balance out our blood sugar? So really our plate should be broken down into 3 sections, and this includes a carbohydrate section, and we just talked about those carbohydrate foods, and those carbohydrates aren't coming just exclusively from those foods. They can come in a lot of different like shapes and sizes and colors and everything. So we want to know which foods those come from. We'll talk about that more in the next class too. About half of our plate should be non-starchy vegetables, and about a quarter of our plate should be lean protein. So there's a lot of different like plate methods that describe this differently. But basically, when we try to get just a little bit of carbohydrates, our blood sugar isn't going to spike as much versus when we fill half or the whole plate with carbohydrates. So you can see that broccoli is a good example of that. Any of the colorful like fruit or veggies, like your broccoli, leafy greens, carrots, cauliflower, peppers, tomatoes. So corn is going to be more of a starchy vegetable. So just like potatoes and some of our squash and I'm trying to think. Yeah, those are the only ones coming to mind right now. But yeah, so that one's more starchy. Green beans and carrots are more of a non-starchy vegetable. So what are tortillas made out of?
¿De qué están hechas las tortillas?
De maíz.
Corn, flour. Those both fall in the carbohydrate section. Yeah, they both have carbohydrates, so honestly choosing the ones that you like better and just trying to stick with that size of a portion of that food. So actually some of the squash is more starchy than others. So I believe like butternut squash, acorn squash, and spaghetti squash are more starchy, and then like zucchini and summer squash would be more non-starchy. So how often should we eat to make sure our blood sugar doesn't dip too low and to help prevent a spike? So we want to make sure we're not getting too low, and the best way to do that is to kind of try to eat every 3 to 4 hours, starting your day with breakfast. So for some people this might look like just smaller meals more frequently, because trying to eat big meals 5 times a day might be overwhelming and you may not have time to be eating like a large meal 5 times a day or more. This is just an example of how that might break down. It doesn't have to look exactly the same for you. Some people find it helpful to set an alarm on their cell phone to remind them to have a balanced snack or a meal. Yeah, so they are nutritious. One thing is they do have more salt, which can raise our blood pressure.
Okay.
So you want to be careful how much of those we're eating and also how often.
Okay.
But making sure you stay hydrated too can help your blood pressure. That salt can help you to stay hydrated during the summer months when it's really hot out. But yeah, overall we want to try to limit our sodium because it's really easy to get it from a lot of snacks, restaurant foods, fast foods, even canned foods, and a lot of us get more than we need. So you all should have gotten your version of the handouts today. If you got a language that you didn't mean to, feel free to change it out when we're done with class today. These are, one of them is the Canadian Food Guide, and this, or their plate, is a little bit different than the My Plate in the United States, in that it is really focused more on fresh fruits and veggies, that taking up half the plate, and more plant-forward protein options and whole grains. The other one I want you to take today is this from the Association of Diabetes Care and Education Specialists. This one has some good information on what qualifies as some of those non-starchy vegetables, what are lean protein sources, some healthier fats, and obviously our fruits that have some carbohydrates. And then also getting familiar with the nutrition facts label and all the information that you can get just by looking at the side of the food package.